All right, so as promised, I said we're going to come back a little bit earlier. There's still some people outside. If you can see people waiting outside, motion them to make their way back in. I wanted to start off very quickly about talking about the logo for the Arctic Arts Summit. You can see it's on the wall on either side of the longhouse. So I'm not sure if you read this or not. Blake Lepine was here yesterday on one of the panels, and Blake actually created this design. So an interesting thing about this design is in the Yukon, there's two living things that went around the world and made everything right, and so that humans could live safely and as one with nature. And one of them was Taike, the raven, and the other one was Asunya. And so the interesting thing about this is he incorporated, as he said, he likes to incorporate stories into his art. He incorporated one of the origin stories of Taike and how he how he transformed into a spruce needle. And if you want to learn that story, it's a beautiful, beautiful story. On your map, it'll show you a trail along the Yukon River. And if you walk to a place called Rotary Park, there is a sign with the story of how Raven stole the sun, the stars, and the moon. And that story is in there about the raven turning into a spruce needle. So, very, very interesting. I thought that was very cool of him to incorporate that. Very, very cool story. I love it. I am happy to introduce our next panel. So this is going to lead us into lunch. At lunch, we're just going to have bagged lunches, and you're more than welcome to eat inside the longhouse, or you can go outside and enjoy the beautiful heat. It's already getting very, very hot outside. I don't know if you guys went out there or not, but I'm ready to take this vest off. So our next session is Land Defenders, Artists Confronting Arctic Colonialism. Artists are often on the front lines of calls for social change and social justice. I'd like to allow these artists to join us today from across the Circumpolar North as they discuss their ongoing efforts to assert Indigenous sovereignty and confront colonialism throughout the North. And I'd like to introduce our first moderator, actually, Beska. So I'm going to leave the floor over to Beska. Round of applause.
Thank you. Really good pronunciation. It's not that often you nail it right away. Yes, I'll keep it very short in the start, and we just go straight into the participants introducing themselves. And I like to go with the sun or clockwise, whatever. So we'll start over here.
Hello. Se Uje Milanakeko. I am Dene Suthlene from Tlitlikwe First Nations and Denende, also known as the Northwest Territories. I am a founding member of Dene Nawo, a nonprofit organization. Our vision is land, language, culture forever, and we do a lot of land-based arts education across the Northwest Territories. I'm also a moose hide tanner, and I teach high tanning. I've been to First Nations communities across Canada, revitalizing that land-based art practice. And I'm also a filmmaker and a visual artist and other things. Masi.
Bores, my name is Ella Maria Hetta Isaksen. I am from Datno, in the northern part of Sápmi on Norwegian side, the exact same place where Beska is from. I am an artist, a musician, a singer, a yoiker, but also soon an actress. There will be coming a movie next year where I've had the honor of playing the main character. And in this movie, but also in all of my music and all of the music I have written for the past few years, it's always with a political message or some kind of activism in my art. So I've also like been an activist as long as I can remember. It started as an activism in my own school, convincing my friends to always talk Sami. But it has now become a lifestyle, environmentally, climate-wise, but also being a land protector, defender, if we are going to use that word today. So, yeah.
Hello, my name is Rivjok Lustrom in Norway, and I'm from Galatiduned, also known as Greenland. And I am an assistant professor at the University of Greenland, Ilisimatusarfik. And in my free time, I'm also the chair of the Human Rights Council of Greenland. So from my point of view, it will be more how the reason I even joined the council was because I was a part of something called Uraninamik, which is an organization against uranium mining in Greenland. And we weren't doing quite well. Well, we were doing okay, but it became really popular when we started working with artists, and music and art became involved in the movement. And that's when it became popularized and that the people started working with us and against the government and other mining companies. So I know very well the importance of art in a movement when we fight for human rights. And I will also come into that historically because of my education and what I teach at the university. So I am not myself an artist, but half of my family, all of my family from my father's side are artists, either in theater or in music. So I do have it in my blood, but I will not claim to be an artist.
Willie Jan and Sarote, Melissa Shaganov Suzetalan, Yudishuath Kodakara Atlan, Naitini Ana Kayak Sensiaden, artist at curator, Auntie Golgashna, Chinan Kotan was at Atlan. It's good to see everyone here today. My name is Melissa Shaganov. I am Caribou and Fish Eater clan from Night Dinyana, or the Log Over the River, or Chickaloon Village. And I am an artist, a curator, an auntie, and I would say that the primary sort of crux of the work that I do is visiting. I do a lot of work trying to see each other and communicate and find ways in which we can understand each other's perspective. So the way that I protect or defend the land, I think, is a much more soft approach in a way to be on the land and to harvest from the land and to learn how to treat our plant and animal relatives. So, Chinan.
Thank you. Taitatallu was asked to be host of this panel, so I'll tell you a little bit about Taitatallu. It's an artist collective based in Kautokeino in Sapmi on the Norwegian occupied side of Sapmi. And it's an artist collective that has now 21, I believe, partners there, and it was started in 2014 and has really grown fast and is now on venues like this. The founder was, or the two founders was Marhanne Saara, who was one of the 3 Sami artists at the Venezia Biennale this year, where I was also a curator, and together with Liisa Rauna-Finnbuk, who is, I believe, on another panel tonight. So that's shortly. It's a very diverse crew of artists in Taitatallu. It's photography, writing, visual arts, music, filmmaking, everything. So that's briefly about Taitatallu. And I can tell a little bit about me also, why maybe I'm in this panel. Though I'm not an artist in like an regular sense, then I seem to approach life pretty holistically and use whatever tools necessary to get the message or try to change the world for the better. And art and music and writing and acting. I was co-acting on the movie with Ella Maria. There are many tools, so I try to utilize them all. So that's shortly about me. Yeah, and you told where we're from. Yeah, how should we dive into things? Okay, I see I know of two similarities in this panel as a starting point. And that's how you, Heiviok, good pronunciation, told about how art and music and so forth was part of opposing the mining industry. And on the other side of me here sits Ella Maria, that also uses her artistry very politically. So if we can start from that, if you can tell how that movement went over at Kalatlit Nunat.
Thank you. Actually, it's a very long historical tradition in Greenland that whenever there's a conflict beforehand, people would kill each other. And then we eventually became too few. And then we invented the rap battle. And we became really good at it. So it's a part of our oral tradition that we also solve conflicts with singing and to each other and dissing each other. And the one that people laugh at the most loses. So that is a very ingrained part of our culture, even though some seem to have forgotten it, it's still in our DNA. And so when in the 70s, when a lot of the very big protests started in Greenland, we saw a lot of singers, Sume, and others, start singing about the oppression that they were feeling. And there's a movie about it that I highly want you to see. It's called The Sound of a Revolution. But besides that, what many people tend to forget, the person who suggested that we should have a permanent forum for indigenous people's issues was a Greenlandic woman, Henrietta Rasmussen. Besides being that she was a poet, she invented basically what people called the indigenous feminist movement in Greenland, we can call it that, and made a newspaper called Gilut, where other people could write in their own poetry and the imagery to really showcase the indigenous pride, and also to showcase that they wanted to be indigenous women who are not whitewashed, so to say. My mother was actually one of the very first to write a poem in that one. And I did not know about it until this year. She never told me. But the music and theater really took hold in the 70s and the 80s. And because of that tradition, we now see really, really fantastic musicians in Greenland taking up that handle. We have Shaganov, who is really fantastic at speaking about what they experience in Greenland, what they see in Kalatlit Nunat, and especially climate change. And then we have Jonas Taike, who is a poet who really understands how to say what the social problems in Greenland are, and how they're connected to colonialism. And so the good thing about our artists, I have noticed, they don't do silo thinking. They know that everything is connected, that you cannot talk about social justice without including climate, and you have to include colonialism and decolonization in a way that you don't start fights. It started that way, but all young artists are somehow always a little bit angry. And then we eventually figure out that anger meets anger, so we have to find a way to have a dialogue. And that's the beauty that you see the cycle of this, that the anger and then the kind of like the dialogue, and then anger and dialogue. But it's also very ugly, because the reason we have this cycle is that we keep meeting the same issues, that we keep meeting capitalism and mining industries that keep trying to take away our land. And that's why in Galatlitunad we often say that a victory for Sápmi is a victory for Greenland, because we can see ourselves in your situation. So yeah, it's a very long answer, but there's a history behind what we are experiencing now, and how we're using art and music to fight against oppression. And I think it's extremely inspiring, because as an activist, because that is primarily what I am, it can get extremely exhausting to keep fighting the same issues again and again and again. But then when you meet artists that just create beautiful things, they hurt, but they're also beautiful, and they give you energy. And you gave me energy yesterday, thank you. So there's a lot of these things that also give power.
Yes, I can just talk about like our side of this mining fight. So both me and Beska have been very involved in a case called Riehpavuotna, or in a case based in Riehpavuotna, which is a fjord in Finnmark, in northern part of Norwegian occupied Sápmi, where there is a copper mine planned, and the mining waste of this copper mine is supposed to be dumped into the fjord, toxic mining waste, which in itself is pretty fucked up, thank you, in the lack of better words. So Norway is one of the very, very few countries in the world who still do this kind of practice. The biggest mining companies in the world and many, many other countries who have done this before have now forbidden it, because it just does not make sense to dump your waste into the fjord. So that's one part of this case, but at the other side there's also this district is also a reindeer herding district that is already under a lot of pressure. So this mine would be like coming on top of all the other fights that they are struggling with in that area. So it both touches my like the environmental activist in me, but also the Sami rights fight. So for now, the case has been on hold for a while, because we have had a lot of victories, temporary victories. We have seen how our camps and protest camps and people showing up and actually using civil disobedience to stop machines coming to the area, that we have succeeded, and investors have pulled away from the project, and but the end result is still to be revealed at some point, but I choose to be hopeful. Yeah. So in my case, how I have contributed to this fight is like, both as an artist, you get like a platform, and you can choose how you want to use that platform and that voice, how you want to use your name in the media. And I have tried to use whatever I can to draw attention to this case, but also writing music to express the pain and the anger that we all feel, because this is a reoccurring thing. It's like not a new thing at all. This is the same fight that we have fought, or the activists before us have fought in the Alta River case. So it's just such an ongoing fight, and sometimes you're exhausted, but there's just not an alternative. You can't like give up. I don't know if you want to add to that, maybe.
I'm thinking about which direction we could go now. we have already been talking about anger, colonialism, social problems, and that people get tired. So maybe we'll go that direction from here, and like early on in this panel, so we can try to find solutions at the end. Is that an idea?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Feel free to talk about anger, dark stuff. I can start with myself. Like I mentioned, I also write poems mainly, and I write other stuff also, mainly political stuff, papers. But the poetry for me has been therapy. And we have already mentioned how we get tired, so we also need some kind of system to take care of ourselves and each other. Yeah, if I dive into a personal story then to try to set something of the tiredness we face when it's an ever ongoing struggle. And I believe, or I know that the governments, the authorities, they very seldom care at all. And they have lives on they have blood on their hands. In Sápmi, in Greenland, in Canada, all over the Circumpolar area. And I don't understand how they can turn away willingly when we tell them over and over again, you are literally killing us. So, okay, then it got really dark really fast. Sorry. Yeah. I'll leave the mic open if someone was to take over.
When I think about being a land protector, a water protector, an activist in my community, I think about the work that I do with teaching moose hide tanning and caribou hide tanning. When I first started thinking about the anger of my parents and all of my aunties and uncles going to residential school. And so there was that gap of knowledge in my family where I would have learned from my mother or my aunties, but none of them, all of them went to school. So it took me many, many years to piece together all of the knowledge and the whole entire process for myself to reintroduce that to my family. And there's a lot of frustration and a lot of anger for that knowledge to be missing in my family. And so I started tanning hides over 10 years ago, and I was just going to make moose hide to continue doing my own art, because I do make moccasins and vests and clothing for my family, and I was going to sell it and just be like an artist at home. I haven't been sold anything since I started. There was a need in our community for instructors and for teachers. And so I quickly was asked to be and put into a position as an educator, as a knowledge holder, while I was still learning the practice. And seeing that there was needing these places in our communities to be filled, even though that I wasn't fully, I did not fully have all of the knowledge, yet my elders were there to support me. And they supported me in these positions as a knowledge holder. One of my elders is sitting outside right now. She's one of my teachers, Lucianne Yakalaya. She's an incredible bead worker. I told her to come in so I can give her a shout out. But being able to fill the position in our community, but now my work is to pass all of that knowledge on to as many people as I can, and to make that knowledge accessible. And so I do travel. I do put on hide camps with Deninawa. We have a hide camp coming up in my home community, Llitliqua, in August 2nd to the 13th. And the opposite of the anger is that in these camps, when we're on the land and we're teaching our practices, and we're together in community, and we have our children and our elders and everybody there, and there's a few days into camp where everybody figures out what they're doing, and figures out where everything is, and figures out who's to asking. So everybody's working, and people are cooking, the kids are laughing, our elders are sharing. Everybody knows what they're doing. Nobody's just, if you're sitting around, you're visiting or you're eating. And it's just a moment, and I just think this is how our communities were. We were happy, we were healthy, and we worked together. And it's always such a beautiful, beautiful moment being able to do this work.
Thank you for bringing us back up again so beautifully. Yes.
I'm sort of realizing, I'm getting emotional too, realizing on the stage that I think I first even wanted to learn about moose hide through your work and through watching you on social media from a distance, not knowing you, but just seeing another Dene person doing this. And for me, it was kind of like the cool girl thing to do. I'm going to tan moose hides. But when I started to ask around in my community, I realized that it was much closer to me than I had even realized. And my great-grandfather had been arrested for hunting a moose out of season. And because of that, all of my great-uncles, my grandpa, went to an orphanage, and they were never returned home, They lived there, but they were not able to be with their parents. And because of this, the men in my tribe stopped tanning because it became a crime. And they had to do this very thing that was so against themselves, which is bury the hide or burn it or put it in the water, right? It became no longer this gift that the hide is, right? It's no longer this honoring of that animal who chose you to give itself to you. And so, through the process of hide work, I realized that it's this lifelong sort of knowing of yourself and this undoing of this sort of person that Western society tells us that we have to be, and I just am so in awe of the work that you've done with Dene Naho, and I think in many ways the movement is moving towards Alaska with Jessica Denny, with different individuals who are tanning hides, with my aunties, and I think it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done, and I'm still you don't learn through one hide, you have to learn through so many, and everyone is different. And I think it gets me to that, you said anger meets anger. And I lived there for a long time, and I feel like I got a little reputation of thinking I was speaking truth, but realizing too that there is a softness in just being and doing that kind of work. And that is just as important in defending things, just as important as protecting things, is finding your role in the community, and you find that by doing these things in community, by doing them together, because it just feels so right, and it feels correct, right? And right before this, I had done a hide tanning demonstration with a bunch of 11-year-olds, and they were just all so, ew, it stinks, gross, ooh, there's maggots, as we're fermenting the hide, doing it the Denina way. And by the end, there was kids who were staying through lunch, pulling the hair, staying through recess to pull the hair, and they got so into it. And I got an email from one of the mothers, and she told me, oh, my son is, he told me that he has to tell all of his schoolmates that he's actually Athabascan, that he's not anything that they called him before, that he can like stand in that power. And I think that that's part of defending a thing, is building capacity with young people. And you build capacity by helping people learn who they are and feel very close to that. And that's, I feel like, through Moosehide and through watching what our brothers and sisters are doing, even across these like arbitrary borders. So, thank you, Mila. Shanann.
I have a follow-up question for you, Melissa. You said that moosehide tanning was criminalized. Did people still tan moosehide like in secret, so that this traditional knowledge would go, survive through that criminalization period? Because it rings a bell. It's very similar. We have also had many traditions criminalized and still are, like fishery, lake fishery, and so on. Hunting, gathering, and so forth. So it's a very familiar thing, for me at least, that you mention. And why I'm asking is that we have kept doing things, even though we are criminals. And that's, I'm so grateful for those who walked before us that they didn't really care. There was very little police in our area, so they were able to do and live their own lives. So that was the follow-up question. Did they continue in secret?
So Chickalun is just about an hour north of Dagayakak, or what is known as Anchorage. And so it was pretty close to where there was a lot of settlers. And so part of, in the United States, is they put on all these sort of hunting seasons, right? When you can hunt a moose, when you can hunt other things. And it's really kind of against sort of our traditions. Like I learned from my elder, Jeannie Maxim, talking about how we would only work on really hides in the spring because they were smaller and they were more manageable. And that the fall moose were too big. Like that was something that was, you were going to end up, kind of offending that moose because you couldn't finish it, right? Because it was too difficult. So she told us that we were only, so these laws kind of like put us in this position of not even being able to do the thing that was so aligned with what we knew how to do, right? Because the moose, it's such an amazing knowledge and technology, right? Its brain breaks down its body. Its bones are punching tools, Its hind legs are our nagige, or the side scraper, right? So it's like, I think that people certainly still hunted, but the process of working on a hide takes enough time that the wardens would have arrested them, like they did my great-grandfather, and change the course of his son's lives and my father's life and my life, So I think that people did what they could.
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of really great art also comes from being in the dark and feeling alone and feeling miserable. And it can come out in anger, but it can also come out in hope. And at least for my people, we have always been extremely hopeful. We've always been very good at looking at the bright side of life. And because of that, a lot of the time we find art again and find a hope again. For me, I lost my language when I was a kid. We had a teacher who was not a very good teacher, so I decided not to speak Greenlandic anymore. So by the time I was 11, I couldn't speak Greenlandic anymore. I got my language back by listening to Greenlandic rap music and Greenlandic rock music. And coincidentally, all of that music was very revolutionary and very anti-colonial. So it was a good way of healing and getting back my language, but also a good way of figuring out, okay, what is my coping mechanism? What am I going to do from now on? And that was to fight for my rights as an Inuk. And I think many young people are doing that now as well, because we are, at least in our capital, we are only 19,000, but it's quite a lot for us. People speak Danish a lot, and they don't speak Greenlandic as fluently as they want to. And because of that, they maybe feel less Greenlandic than they actually are, less Inuk than and because we sometimes indoctrinate ourselves into believing that we are less than we are, because we start to believe in blood quantum and other things that are not part of our culture. And I think with music and with art, a lot of people find healing. And that is one of the things that I truly believe in, that art is the best healing power. Yesterday, I had a horrible headache, and I just wanted to go home. And then you started singing, and I started dancing along to the music. And then afterwards, I realized, oh, I don't have a headache. So there's something there. There's something in music and in moving that heals us. And I just really wanted to come into that part of art as well.
Thank you. What a compliment. No, I just wanted to add to that I feel like it has been like the biggest gift given to me. Like, my work is making art, and the art I make heals myself. So every time I'm in pain, the only thing I can do is write, and that in itself is making the pain go away. But the biggest gift of that is when I perform, I get to offer healing to other people and my own people. And like you said, I relate very much to the how should I say, like losing the language. I never did that, but a lot of people around me have, and I think we have a lot of the same, like, identity issues or conflicts, like, am I less of a Sami because I have lost these things along the way? And what has been so empowering throughout my career or my journey is that through my music I have connected to, like, other Samis who lost their language, and who are actually learning Sami language through my lyrics, but also connecting to the people who never lost the language, and like building those bridges is just so powerful. And now I'm healing your headache, so it's that's amazing.
Doug, you're in the audience. Are you comfortable with me sharing Ella Maria's inspiration? Okay. Doug told me this morning, and shout out to Doug, he helped us pull together the lavvo outside. Yeah, it seemed such a nice opportunity to share this. Doug told me this morning that he came in this room when you started playing last night, and he was like, I have to get closer, and then he came up to the front, and I was in the back because I was nervous about our thing. But then Doug told me this morning that, yeah, he used to make music and play in a band. So this morning he has reached out to his old band members because he was so inspired by your concert and want to start doing music again. And that's amazing. Yeah, so you will connect after.
Definitely.
Please come to the mic, Doug.
But as he's walking,
you get the mic in your hand there.
I just love what I'm hearing here, and you just reaffirm that it's my old elder, Matt Tom, he always used to say, keep it going. So keep it going. That music made me cry last night. there was something in it, and it's pretty hard. It's like trying to squeeze water out of a rock when it comes to my tears. I was beaten when I cried. I wasn't allowed to cry, but that cut through something. And we did play music, and we used to sing about family, and we just fell apart. All our instruments were handmade. At one time, we must have owned 150 handmade flutes made out of bird feathers, bird bones. We used to have little whistles. We used to sing, and we used to sing about loving each other. So I'm going to encourage that's Phil. He's like my dad. Eh? I'm going to say, let's do this again, because you know, and this is for men too. You know, you guys got to get yourselves into the counseling rooms, because we had to. I tell men, we got to sit down and talk about our problems. You know, I tell my son, I really remember that when the message about raising your son as well. You know, I have to apologize to my son lots and say, sorry, son. I was raised with soft hands, but it was the heavy hands that hurt. You know, and my mother, till the day she died, scared the crap out of me when she was mad. Because she was right. You know, it's okay. You know, like a piece of hide, when you put it on you, it feels better when it's softer, when it's worked. And us men, we have to soften ourselves. Don't follow this, what you see on the movies. You know, I got to take my own advice too, you know, but I realized I was missing something, and it was the music. So thank you. It really touched me last night, and I regret I never came here sooner. Yeah, thank you very much. And
thank you so much, Doug. Yeah, speaking after Doug is always hard. Yeah, we have youth as inspiration. I'm not that young anymore, so I also have to turn to Ella, because and not only to you, but to our artists all around the world. That I'm so grateful, because in the line of work we are doing, defending the lands on the front lines, it's sometimes it's devastating, it's so hard, and you get so tired. So in the darkest moments, it's the artists that has held me up. So I am forever grateful for our artists. You are healers. You are the ones who takes care of the rest of us. So I just wanted to say that. And then a little funny story, because it got so serious now. You mentioned the documentary, The Sound of Revolution, and I also would encourage everyone to try to get a hold on that. I don't know if it's available online.
It's available online, and you can just ask me for the name of it. But you could also write The Sound of Revolution on Google, and something that sounds like Sume will come up. And again, highly recommend that you watch it. Very, very inspiring, and very, very cool people. Yes.
Yeah, and my little story is that the last time I went to Nuuk, or the only time I went to Nuuk, in the airplane they were showing this documentary about Sume, and it was so energizing and so healing, and it showed that even though we are on the front lines today, our peoples, they have been on the front lines forever. And it was so inspirational. And I was so happy when I found that out that in ICC Greenland, Hjalmar Dahl also was a part of Sume, and I was going to visit him. So I got a signed copy of the Sume album, and it's on my bookshelf back home as a honoring of those who went before us. And I also want to mention, since I introduced also Taitatallu, that the inspiration for Taitatallu was the Mädsejuauku. It was a group of artists in the 70s, the Sami artists. They gathered and made this really strong political art during the Alta rebellion, some calls it, or the Alta Guaudageino river case, when we were fighting the dams. And those artists are still a huge inspiration even today for many of us. Well, now I don't know where we go. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm really loving what everybody's talking about, and about our use and our teachings, and what Doug shared with us about softening ourselves, and moose hide tanning is like a softening process. And I've worked with writers and poets who've called it a radical selfening of softness for ourselves, and in a form of self-care. And so I find that, like, as activists and land defenders, we are confronted with so many things that we see in our communities, and trying to make a positive change, and also keeping ourselves healthy. And through the pandemic, we haven't been able to gather, and so we've had to postpone a lot of the work that I've been doing, so I haven't been able to be in community. And there was such a noticeable, like, difference in my mental health, because I wasn't able to do the work that I love with my community, and how important it is for us to gather as community people, for us to, like, be on the land and doing the work that fulfills us and connects us to each other in the land, and to our animals that sustain us. And so I was just, one of the things about the work that I do on the land is when you're working with animals, when you're harvesting, like when you're cutting fish, or if you're picking berries or medicine, there's a Dene concept, is to be happy while you're working. And when I was little, I used to think that was such a simple idea. But when you're making it like a conscious decision to have a positive mindset while you're working, you're learning how to be, like, incorporating this way of thinking into your life. And that's just to think in a good way for yourself, and for whatever you're gathering and whatever work you're doing, you're putting that good energy into that, because you don't know where that hide's going to go, because somebody's going to make moccasins for an elder or for a leader, or the berries you're picking you're going to gift to somebody, and they'll make bannock for somebody and feed them. So the energy that you're putting into things is going out into the world, and that's coming from you. And so we have to, like, I always love that concept when I actually realize what it actually meant. Very, like, long into my process, being like, oh. Like, so many of our stories that you hear, you're just, like, years later, be like, that's what he meant. And so I just love, yeah, those moments of becoming aware of a concept like an elder shares with you through a story that you're not really, like, you're not meant to know what it is at the time, but, like, later on, while you're continuing the practice and doing the work or on the land, you're just kind of, like, have a moment of, like connections. You're connecting with that story in this moment, in this place where you're supposed to be doing what you're supposed to be doing, and it's just, like, really magical.
It made me smile a bit, because my mom made my national costume for me, my assorted. And yes, it is healing and it's beautiful, but my mom was swearing the most I have ever heard her while she was making my clothes. And we actually made a joke about it. We said that all her swearing will keep the bad spirit away. she was swearing so bad and so much. And in the end, I even became apologetic, like, I'm so sorry that I'm getting my confirmation. And she was like, but I never feel more beautiful or more loved than when I wear those. So they are 20 kilos, so I didn't bring them with me. So you're not going to see me at my most beautiful. But maybe someday when you come to Greenland, you'll be able to see me in them. And because I feel that it smells when she's tanning for us it's sealskin. And but it was done with a purpose, and she did it for me. She made that costume and spent 3 years of her life to make that, and I'm so grateful for that. And that is also an art form indeed, and very difficult as well. Very few Greenlandic people have their own associate now because it takes so long. The resources are so expensive sometimes. So I just wanted to come in on that because that's why I was laughing a bit.
Can I just add to that what I'm wearing today is what my mother has made, and in every thread and every of these, I don't think I yet know how much time it takes to actually make this, and she has sewn my clothing since I was a little baby. So and I have grown a lot in this time, so she always had to every year make new. And I just love that, what you just said about this concept of the energy you put into your work. When you put it out into the world, it's not lost, it's not gone, it's gonna continue on and energize other people. And I just thought that was so beautiful when you said that my mother is here with me now and she's empowering me, and maybe that's something we can tell ourselves as activists, because sometimes it can feel really hopeless as the fight, the struggles, the battle in itself, it's so huge, and you just feel like whatever I'm contributing will never be enough. But it is. And I often tell these two younger Sami activists that no one will probably ever thank you for all the energy and all the time you put into this battle, this fight, because no one will know. Many of these times you will be alone, you will have to battle your own fears, your own demons, and make yourself wake up the next morning, and nobody will ever know what that took for you. So I just want to thank all of you as much as I can for this moment, for sharing, because it gives me so much, and I just think this proves that. And thank you, Doug. I can't even, I'm going to start crying, but these gatherings, as you said, we have to believe that it's at the end going to be enough.
I feel like there's...
We have 8 minutes left, just to let you know. Yeah.
I won't go beyond
Go
8
ahead.
minutes. I feel like what I keep hearing is that that we need, and from Doug, is that we need to have our cup full, meaning that we need to fully sort of know ourselves and to be healed ourselves, at the same time, because it is a really thankless thing to be on the front lines at times, and often very violent, and I think it's how do you fill your cup up with, we call it Nazi Zaga snel you, you put your thoughts into what you make, and you have to be good thoughts because you're going to be giving it to someone, right? And I think that this whole, what we've been talking about is if we're looking at the work that we're doing now and look at the healing that we're doing as something that we're passing on, that only lives with us for a second, I think that in many ways it's a metaphor for a moose hide or beadwork or something that you create, right? It only lives with you for a moment. And if you think of it as having to pass it on, how are you filling your cup up enough so you have enough to give, and yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Mila.
Yeah.
I actually had to double check it since I'm a word nerd as well. And I mean, we all love our languages, but talking about both reclaiming traditions, languages, but also music, the word inspire means to excite, encourage, or to breathe life into. It comes from the Latin word that means to inflame or to blow into. When you inspire something or someone, it is as if you are blowing air over a low flame to make it grow. And it actually has the words, the in spirit. So when you are inspired, you are living in spirit. So when you are inspiring people, you are inspiring them to live in spirit. And I think one of the ways to fill the cups of each other is not just to put the positive thoughts into your everyday work, but to remember that the communities work as well. So to say thank you to each other, not just for the land or the air or the water, but thank you to each other so we don't feel that fucking lonely in front, because we do.
Thank you, Timmy. And you mentioned community, and I think that is also a key word for us, because yeah, I also been there. I thought I was alone in this world in the darkest moments, but when I realized, and what you Ella mentioned, the feeling of not being enough. The day I realized that you do as much as you can, and that has to be enough, then my life got easier. And when I realized that my community is so loving, caretaking, and I realized I could take a moment off these battles for quite a time, actually, to recover. So that's just a reminder, I think, for us that we are allowed to rest, and we have to allow ourselves to rest, because it gets dangerous else. Just as a reminder, we are enough. You're enough. You and you and you.
And that's so beautiful coming from you, because the Biaska is like really one of our main heroes in Sápmi, and no, but you are, and they are like agreeing. But for us who, or for me who I've grown up in the same place as you and always looked up to you, it's, you know, you can always feel like, oh, I'm not doing as much as he is doing. I could always do, and that coming from you, like you're allowed to rest. I think that is so beautiful, and I think that is important also for us who are standing in the front lines and who are role models, to tell each other thank you and to tell each other you are enough and you're allowed to rest now. I think that's very important.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes left, and we can go a little bit over time. So we can like make some closure comments if you want. Yes.
We have Nyla here at the deck was offered to do a healing song at the end if you all agree. When you are done.
Oh, thank you.
There'll be a healing song when this is over. That's what it was. Yeah, they wanted her to speak into the microphone. I also really, just before all of this, a few days ago, a very big national hero of Greenland passed away. To Christiansen, he was the man who actually designed our flag, the Greenlandic flag. And these earrings I'm wearing right now are the colors that he would often use in his designs. And I wanted to honor him today, so I'm wearing this. And also just to showcase that art, in this case, actually connected a whole nation together, a whole people, into becoming Galatlit Nunat. I know that many people would rather be Inuit Nunat or Nunakput, but right now it's Galatlit Nunat. Yes, but I really just wanted to really show that he knew it was political. He knew how important it was that we had our own flag and that it didn't look like a cross, that we didn't look like the Danes. And I just thought it was so important to really honor him today as well. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Final comment. I think that when we talk about defending something, it kind of feels like we're always up against it. And we are in many ways. But I think like we've brought it back to sort of healing and community, which is, I think, where at least I spend most of my time, because that is where I fill my cup up, and that's where I, prepare myself and also get guidance for all this defending and protecting that needs to be done. And I think that what we all have to do is look at all of these things, confronting Arctic colonialism, I think was the description, as all of our jobs, and that, it can't just be on my shoulders, it can't just be on your shoulders, it can't just be on your shoulders, that we all have to shoulder this burden, and that means listening and taking perspective, and sometimes being soft, and sometimes being real hard. So. That's it. Hannah.
Hello.
Last comments? I really have a hard time calling myself an activist. I think that the work that we do and the work that I do with my elders is like, it's inherently like political and an activist, and I feel like every time I go on my land and I assert my inherent rights on my land, that I'm protecting the land, and I'm out there observing, and I'm seeing the change of the climate change, how it's affecting my land. And I think all of us in the northern climate, we see that when we go out in our traditional territories, and witnessing that, and witnessing the effects on the animals that sustain our lives. And sorry, like, it's really powerful for us to be able to tell those stories, and the grief that brings to us, because it's really difficult to see that when you're out there. So whether we like to call ourselves activists or not, if we're traveling on our lands, if we're on our lands, we're connecting with the land, and that's also a relationship that constantly needs to be nourished, and that also nourishes us and our spirits and who we are, and also. Just being there and with our land, that's a form of protecting our land in that way. So, Messi.
Okay, final words. I think I'm learning a lot just sitting here, but like growing up, and one of the things that I take away from this, and also something that I have been thinking about a lot in the past, is this the fill your own cup kind of thing. And I think at the core of many indigenous cultures, it is this sacrifice. You always give back, or part of your hunt you give back, and that is at the core of our culture. And I've always thought of my time and my life as a sacrifice, that this is what I'm going to give. But in the past maybe the past year, I've been thinking of what I'm going to sacrifice to myself, what am I going to give back to myself, as if there's like a fire, just like how we started this whole art summit. You sacrifice to the fire, and what am I going to sacrifice to my own fire? Because I in many ways feel like I never chose to be an activist. It's something that I was set to do. I was born an activist, and I want to die an activist. That's what I feel that so strongly, and I don't want my activism to die before me. So that's why we have to sacrifice to ourselves also. Take care of that fire that keeps you going.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like we just really started a really good conversation. And it's so sad that our time is up, because this was healing. This hour for me, and yeah.
The healing song.
Yeah, I won't talk anymore. We got offered a healing song, and we really appreciate it. So we'll conclude here. Thank you.
I'm going to lead it over to Nyla. And just before Nyla takes us into lunch, just to let you guys know, lunch is slightly delayed. There is a fire outside, so you can go out there, take some breaths, fill up your cup before lunch. Lunch will be in here at 1, and so I'd like to invite these three up to the front. These two up to the front.
Yeah, Nyla, Kluge, Miigwans, Uye, Fort Selkirk, Yukon, Northern Shoshone. Yeah, this people's really touched my heart. I think when we talk about healing our people, it takes a lot of courage to be, like you say, sacrifice your life for the well-being of your people and your land, water, air, and fire, the 4 sacred elements. I've known Doug for many years. He's a trailblazer in a lot of ways for our people. And ancestors said to never give up our fight for our land, water, air, and fire, and our people and our nations. So this healing song is to help the people, help the land, help the animals, help our sacred fires each one of us are gifted with. Our Creator is foremost the number one thing in our lives, Creator and creation of all life. So I'm blessed to be able to sing the song for all people, especially the panelists who sacrificed, and Doug, who sacrificed so much to help our people heal and become better for the next generation. So if you think about praying, pray for what you need for yourself, pray for what you need for your families and your communities. Beside your buddy?
Sit on his lap?
Yeah, sit on his lap.
I'll stand there. is which microphone? This is live. No, this is just something. No, this is a chant we do. When we sing hand game songs and we do warm ups. We were singing a song with my cousin, and we call it the snow melting song. When the snow melts, it comes as a flood, and it's like I just wanted to share it because a guy sung for us in school, and he said, "I want to sing for you so you have courage." So I want to share this. It was a play song between me and my cousin. So when the snow melts and that water floods down amongst the trees, it's the trees are the ones that hold everything together, the people who stand strong. So when you're out there working, and when these floods come, it's that strength of your art, your prayers, and the strength from your mothers. We thought it was just kind of cool because we do this movement like this, eh? So when the floods come, but it's a warm-up song for us because sometimes we have to sing a long time, and sometimes you get tired. We do that to strengthen us, because sometimes when we stop, we have to keep strong somehow. So your hides, your sewing, looking at a tree, your artwork, coming to places like this to gather that strength. Because when those floods come, they don't bother you, they don't touch you. So, and but we sung that song as play, because our stomachs get sore when we sing. Sometimes for 12 hours a day straight. We sing at the hand games.
silence. Can hear crickets. I hope you guys had a really good lunch, good food, and I hope you were able to stand outside by the fire. Our last session was a very heavy session, and Nran Shonithan to Nyla for sharing that song with the group. It was very, very, I heard it was very nice. And I have an announcement for a pair of glasses that were lost. If you find fuchsia glasses, I don't know what those are, they sound pretty bougie though, but if you find them, you can put them at the front desk, and the person whose glasses they are will go back there and check on them again. If you are flying home tomorrow morning, a reminder, you need to let the Arctic Arts Summit coordinators know. So if you are flying on the early flight tomorrow, if you could email the AAS 2022 email with your flight information, your times, and what hotel you are at, you have to do that by 5 o'clock today so that they can coordinate so that everyone's able to make it to the airport. If you're flying from somewhere else besides, or if you're flying from anywhere international, there's been a lot of chaos at the airports in Canada lately. So you want to get there early, you want to be there on time and ready to go. It's sad that you're going to have to leave tomorrow, but another thing that's happening simultaneously is the Adacom Festival as well. They just had the opening ceremony and they lit a fire. The gallery has been delayed from what I hear. The gallery, which is down the hall, will be open at 2. I tried to go in there earlier and they slammed the door on me, and then there was a staff member in there and I just walked in like I was staff. So I got to check things out and it's really amazing. Some of the artists are already setting up in the white tent. So if you guys have some time after when we're finished at 3, I encourage you to go and check that out. The art crawl tonight is happening from 5 to 8, and there's also still some spaces for the for another trip from the city of Whitehorse, and you're going to go do theater in the bush. There's still spots for that, so I encourage you to sign up for that. I do believe, last I heard, there's 12 spots left. So if you want to go and do that, I highly encourage it. And now, I have a bunch of young people up here. Pretty cool to see you guys moving on with young people and having their voices heard. And forgive me if I am unknowledgeable, but where is this flag from? And my face is turning red because I feel like I should know this. This is the Sami flag. I knew it. This is the Sami flag for the Arctic winter. Okay, perfect. I wasn't sure. I was like, okay, there's a flag that showed up here, and I feel like I should know it. And my face is turning red now because I'm embarrassed. But good thing we have these youth who know worldly things. All right, so I would like to now present our last panel, Knowledge Creators Path Forward in the Arctic Arts Summit. We have our moderator here who is joining us from beautiful Iqaluit. If you've ever been there, the people are amazing. The place is amazing, the food is amazing, and I'm very excited to hear these 5 young people speak. This panel is about joining in Knowledge Creators' next program as they reflect on the summit and possible futures of the Arctic Arts Summit. And where do we go from here? And I'd like to pass it over to my new friend from Iqaluit, I hope, E. Are we friends? Yeah. E? Okay. I'd like to pass it over to Napacha. Napachi.
Thank you. So my name's Napachi Folger. I'm Inuk from Iqaluit Nunavut, as he said. I'll be moderating today. And just to give you a little bit of a background about what I do, I'm an associate editor for Inuit Art Quarterly and do some other work with the Inuit Futures program out of Concordia, and we have Bronson and Jonas are Inuit Futures students. And my apologies for looking at my phone because I couldn't print out my notes today. So I'm not texting anybody, I am giving you the information you need to know. So today we have, I'm going to start with Jonas, who's over here on the left, my left. Jonas Henderson was born and raised in the Okanagan Valley, British Columbia. However, he traces his roots back to the community of Ahakoktok in southwestern Greenland. He's entering his final year of civil engineering at McGill University in Quebec, and after he graduates, he plans to pursue a master's degree in architecture and one day establish his own practice. This summer, Jonas is working as an intern at the Canadian Centre for Architecture with the Inuit Futures program. His past experience includes architectural research under Professor Ipik Turali at McGill University and studio experience with Michael John Architecture, I probably mispronounced that.
Michael John.
Architecture in his hometown of Penticton, British Columbia. Jonas has also served as the senior co-chair for the McGill chapter of AISES, American Indian Science and Engineering Society, with the chapter winning 3 awards during his time as senior co-chair. And next to Jonas is Emil Karlsson from Omasvutna in the far north of Norway. He writes music and sings in the indigenous northern Sami language, but with a sound you may not have heard from the Sami homeland before. A modern indie sound colored by both classical strings and whirling sonic universes with touches that may call to mind alternative country or jazz, as if in a dream, weaving in catchy pop melodies and poetic lyrics that explore that dream world. Karlsson is already an accomplished musician, songwriter, producer, and artist with credits that include 7 years as the frontman for the Tromsø-based indie rock band, Resikulet. You want to correct me on that?
It's good enough.
Okay. My apologies about the pronunciations. I am going to do badly on those. In 2019, he was named Young Artist of the Year at the Ridu Music Festival, which inspired him to dive even deeper into the Sami Yoik tradition that had always been important to him as a young Sami growing up along the Arctic coast. An idea began to form for a Sami language album, which has now come to fruition as Karlsson's solo record debut, Nagirvarai. Thank you. You know who I am? Bronson. This is Bronson Jacques, who's, sorry, I gotta find his, is an Inuit visual artist who grew up in Postville, Nunatsiavut in Labrador. A student of NSCAD University in Halifax, Bronson is completing his bachelor's degree in fine arts and works as a contributing editor at the Inuit Art Foundation. He's passionate about multidisciplinary arts, delving into many mediums, but specializes in oil painting portraits. Growing up in a family filled with artists of different disciplines who are both traditionally and professionally trained, Bronson has been creating as far back as he can remember. Hoping to return to Nunatsiavut later in life with knowledge and resources to start community programs, Bronson has a drive to give back. We have Nora. Nora Lang comes from the archipelago of the autonomous Åland Islands, located in the Baltic Sea between Finland and Sweden, but is now living in Malmö in southern Sweden. She studies peace and conflict studies at Lund University, is a freelance journalist, as well as one of the editors of the Swedish literary magazine Ord Konst, and is engaged in various other culture and media projects. One of her previous works is the short documentary film that she's going to say out loud for me.
Känn ingen skam för mig i Mariehamn.
Thank you. Which follows the lives of young Ålanders in the small harbor town Mariehamn. Further, she is engaged in poetry and writes on topics of heritage, nature, and the contemporary generation of the archipelago, among other things. Her heart beats for sustainability and human rights, but also for global political issues in a wide sense. Last but not least, we have Isabelle Avingat-Choquette. Isabelle recently graduated from the Museum Studies program at Collège Montmorency in Laval, Quebec. I also don't speak French. Born and raised in Terrebonne, her mother's family is from Igloolik, Nunavut, and her father is French-Canadian. Isabelle currently lives in Montreal, where she works in the Museology department of the Avatak Cultural Institute, taking care of the Nunavik Inuit art collection. Isabelle helped to organize the exhibition of works from Avatak's collection at KWE, Meet with Indigenous Peoples, in 2019. Isabelle's interests include Inuit art and collections, the repatriation of Inuit collections to the north, and continuing to learn about Inuit cultures from the Circumpolar North. She hopes to one day move back to Nunavut with her family. So these are our panelists today, and I'm very excited to talk to them about how we want to move forward with future Arctic Arts Summits. I just want to also note that you should keep in mind that the panelists were not able to attend all the panels, as there were so many, as you know, you probably missed several of them too. So when I'm asking them the questions, they'll be answering based on the content that they were able to see and are not intentionally excluding any panels or workshops with their answers. So my first question is, what was the most relevant content that you observed happening during this summit? And I have no, I don't want to point anybody out, but if anybody has a first go.
I could begin with that. Yeah. I'm Emil. I arrived one day later, so I didn't catch the opening of the festival, but I was here during the whole day yesterday. And most relevant content, I think I have to point out all the performers yesterday, which I was so lucky to hear storytelling out here by the fireplace, and the drum dance with, I don't remember her name. I think she also was from Nunavut, but she had a very beautiful session out here, dancing with her drum and telling us about her traditions, and it was really great. And all the concerts that was in here with Isak and over there on the small stage, and yeah, it's Arctic Art Summit, and to see the art here was obviously the most relevant to me as an artist myself as well.
Great. Jonas?
Personally for me, and as Napaji pointed out, we didn't have the opportunity to go to every panel. But the panel which I enjoyed the most was the one which focused on Indigenous languages. And as someone who sadly doesn't speak Greenlandic, which is the language of my ancestors, I have this funny connection to my heritage when I can't speak the language of my ancestors, and hearing people discuss that and the importance of preservation of Indigenous languages was most relevant to me.
Bronson?
Go ahead. So it's hard to say which one was most relevant to me, because when I accepted the invitation to come here, it was kind of like to rejuvenate my interest in the arts, because over the past 2 years where I'm working from home, studying from home and everything like that, you start to lose a bit of connection to your work. You start to lose a little bit of connection to your community. And that's where I draw my inspiration from with my art. And so when I accepted this, I came here with the intention to make connections again, and every single panel I've been to has been just strengthening connections to me, people I've met virtually, and people I've never met before. And yeah, I went to Queer in the North, I went to a panel about climate change, I went to yeah, every panel I went to was just reaffirming and validating different things that I've felt, and I wanted to, know I wasn't alone in. So it's very hard to say something that was most relevant to me because every single thing has been relevant, and if I could have went to everything, I would have.
Oh, and just to clarify, the terminology in my question, I don't mean that anything was irrelevant, but I think in the context of this panel being about what we can focus on for future Arctic Art Summits. So when you give your answers, it really is about what spoke to you the most and what was really strong in your opinion. I agree, all the panels that you were able to see,
There was one that I attended, Queer in the North. My friend Acha and Azi Mishland spoke on that, and they're people I've known from growing up and people I've met from school, and they spoke on what it means to be queer in the North, what it means to be like non-monogamous and just like in a normative relationship, and I'm in a triad polyamorous relationship, and bringing that back home, it was something that was hard for people to accept at first. So once I heard that there's more people out there who have similar experiences, I could talk to them after the panels and like relate on everything like that. It was very validating and comforting to know. So that's something I want as well, is for more people who are interested in being their authentic self to just feel safe doing that. So that was something that I really liked, and I'm glad that they had that panel.
Thank you.
Can I hook on to that? Because I was actually going to maybe highlight that panel as well. And I kind of, I just noted this sentence that not having to choose between your culture and being queer, or having to choose between your home and being queer. I feel like that definitely hasn't been the case where I come from, really. The thing that you don't have to move somewhere to be able to express your queer identity, and I think that I'm really taking that with me going home now as well, that we need more platforms on Åland as well to highlight the queer history of the island, in the archipelago, and also we need more platforms to be able to express both our love for the island and for the queer community. So yeah, that was really, really, really interesting and fascinating, I gotta say.
For me, it was connections, like Bronson said, and
do you mind just holding your mic up a little?
Connections to the land also was very present, and it makes me want to connect more to where I come from. So maybe go back and connect to the land and with my people. And I also really appreciated the panel on the status report on decolonizing art institutions, because I work for an Inuit organization, so I kind of felt I didn't really need to do so much work on decolonizing the Inuit organization, but it was really an eye-opener. Like I need to bring this back to my work and take action more.
Great. Shall I move on to the next question, or did you have any more comments about that?
I could just fill in on, because I was supposed to be a part of another panel too, but what I'm hearing from all of you telling about the different panels, I would definitely see these panels continuing into future Arctic Arts Summit. Like the language situation, I also had to learn Sami at school. My parents didn't get to learn Sami, and we had sort of the same distance to the language before I started learning it. So it would be so interesting to hear these panels about language and also the queer situation and connections to the land and everything. The only panel that I actually attended was about politics and art, and it was 5 or 6 ministers from different countries And for me, as a young artist, it was, well, I don't want to point out anything, but it was kind of boring to listen to 10 minutes of thanking for being here. I gotta be honest for that.
I think that's an important point to make, is that there's a lot of difference between being politicians and organizers and foundations who sort of theorize about art and artists, and then being on the ground and being an artist and doing the work as artists. So there's a disconnect that I've found there, and I think part of this conversation that we're having today is going to be really helpful to try to link those more effectively.
And don't get me wrong, I mean, the politics around the arts are very, very important.
Of course, yeah. I mean, without that, we would just be sitting in our living rooms, poor and hungry. Well, I would. I think this really connects quite well to the next question. So, were there any surprising connections you made between region, like from your own region, be it Sapmi or Nunatsiavut, and content from international or circumpolar panels or events that you attended? Sorry, that was unclear. Did you make any surprising connections when you were attending the panels in a circumpolar context? Like, not from, if you're not from Canada, was there stuff that you saw that really resonated with you that was from different cultures? And, you know, likewise for the Canadians.
Can I start on that one? Yeah. I think that's maybe the most beautiful thing about a forum like this, because you kind of realize these things about your own culture and the cultural heritage and the meaning of working with that as well. And you get, I mean, I do a lot of that work myself, solo, and I don't really have anyone kind of, you know, pushing me forward in that. So these types of forums are so amazing, because you realize, you know, how you can present things and traditions in a new way, and like what stuff needs to be brought out into daylight even more, you know. And I was thinking actually yesterday about the hidden storytelling that we have on Åland that no one really bothers to describe, I think. And like the collective memory of the island and everything that has happened. I mean, people have lived on the sea of the sea, you know, out on the islands, and I mean, been abroad on sea. Everything is sea and the ocean and the islands. And that also kind of, I mean, influences our accent, our language, the words we use. We have a lot of our own words that differs from other Swedish dialects, and that is not really preserved at all. Like the heritage that is not material in any way, and though it is very much our culture, and I think I try to do that with my poetry and my writing, but it's a very lonely task in many ways. So this is kind of, yeah, this is the collective that is needed in those ways, yeah.
Jonas?
It might sound a little bit superficial, but I think the main connection I made between regions was, well, to start, when I arrived here and I saw all these people arriving in traditional garments and costumes, I was blown away, because I was coming here and I was like, oh yeah, I've got my suit, I'm gonna look great. And then I just see everybody else, I mean, what you're wearing here. So that was one surprise connection I saw, was just this passion for self-ornamentation and self-expression through clothing, which I really, really enjoyed seeing.
Bronson?
Something that I didn't quite expect to feel as a connection was the outlook on spirituality. Where I'm from, we're very, well, during colonization, we weren't allowed to practice any kind of spirituality that wasn't Christianity, and it's always been something I've had a bit of an issue with, and I've always, like, you know, I'm not sure where we're coming from or anything, but when we were at the opening fire and there was the talk about being like a part of creation and thanking the creator, but not having a specific person that you're praising, it's just the land and the earth. And that's something that I really enjoy, because when I talk to my family and stuff like that, they don't talk about a certain person. They talk about just being of the land and respecting the land and being, you know, a part of, like, you come from the land. And then hearing that, like, on the other side of Canada and stuff is like stuff that really resonated with me, trying to figure out where I fit in, where we came from, and just, yeah, hearing those creation stories that aren't like praising a certain person, but just respecting the earth and praising the earth is something that I felt a good connection on.
Yeah, Phil, the elder Phil who had made the fire, we had a conversation with him afterwards, and he made a great point. He said he doesn't like to hear people say, when I'm out in nature, because everybody is nature. And it really, like, struck me, because Nora and I had talked about, we were talking to him, and he said that to us, and we were both like, yeah, yeah. Emil?
Well, yeah, for me, making connections to people in between all the activities is very valuable for me, just to talk to people I've never talked to before. Like yesterday after I had a concert, there was this woman that came to me. Her name is Nancy, or Niap Saunders. I don't know if she's here today. But she came to me afterwards, and we were talking a bit, and she's a throat singer from Montreal. And for me to meet someone practicing their vocal traditions, especially for me as a vocal artist as well, yeah, it's just, I'm so happy to be in a place where so many different people come together and present their cultures. And yeah, the meetings in between, you know, the meetings that are not set up, those are often the best. But also gatherings around the fire, listening to stories together, that's something that you don't experience a lot these days. I mean, storytelling is something that I hope we can bring back more into the daily lives of us, because it's really, it can give us a lot of new perspectives, new experiences, new feelings inside of us. And, you know, sitting together around there and laughing of the same things and clapping and just enjoying things together, that's been very valuable to me. And also meeting friends and colleagues from my homeland, the Sami homeland, and yeah, new friends from the Sami homeland where I'm from, and new friends from all over the world. It can't be said enough, but it's so valuable for everybody, especially after 2 special years. And old friends that suddenly appeared, so yeah, so much.
Isabel?
Pretty much like everybody said, but I saw that storytelling was something that was strong in a lot of our culture, so yeah.
Yeah, I really liked the sort of continuity between cultures and communities across the North. I think a lot of us probably work kind of siloed sometimes. Like, I know Bronson and I work together at the Inuit Art Foundation, and it's absolutely necessary, and it's a wonderful organization. But while we're doing that work, we don't often get to see, you know, work from First Nations across Canada, and especially work from Yukon. So being here, attending Tether, and meeting all these artists from all over the North, Circumpolar North, has been fantastic to make connections, but also see that kind of continuity in all of our varying and different communities. It's been great. Okay, so I have one more question, and then I think we can have a little bit more of an open conversation after that. I mean, it's been pretty open. So I want to preface this question with the fact that we're not here to criticize anything that's happened at this summit. It's been fantastic, but just wanted to say that because it's about, what we could do for the future summits. So for future summits, what topics would you like to see discussed?
Well, I can begin. I think that the topics that have been discussed here probably will be relevant for quite a long time. In some cases, it's unfortunate that the topics are relevant for a long time, but like, for example, how we all over the world have to, fight against mining and, protect our lands and all that. I think we probably have to gather around these questions next year too, but hopefully we would have moved forward until then. Other than that, it's hard for me to come up with any new topics that I would like to see discussed. I mean, the program this year was really great, but the only thing that I felt is that maybe structure-wise it could be portioned out a bit, that we had some concerts earlier on the day and some panel talks a little later, like that we have a bit of everything throughout the day and not just talking and then just concerts and performances like we had yesterday, because it can be heavy in the long run with so many different performances after another. So it would be nice to attend some talks and sit down between the concerts, for example. That's a wish that I have, at least.
Yeah, to at least decompress after a panel and maybe enjoy some music or performances.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm.
Nora?
Yeah, I can go ahead. Yeah, I definitely feel like I unfortunately missed a lot of stuff that I would have loved to go see when it comes to panels. But I guess I was thinking of one thing, because I went to the panel today about curating arts and art from the north, basically, and curating the north. And I feel a need to, maybe not myself, but there is a need to curate my own culture from Åland in a more diverse way, I would say, because we have a tendency to follow very strict and very clear narratives that have been reproduced a lot as well. So I think that would be something to maybe, maybe do something about, or like to have a forum for at the next summit, like how to start maybe collecting and gathering the non-material cultural heritage of a place that really hasn't had that had those platforms before, I guess.
So like just expanding a little more on curatorial practices for cultural...
Yeah, I think so. And maybe also like how to actually start from the beginning in some ways, and like how to be, I guess, how to form that collective that you definitely need to start that process of like trying to maybe also kind of reboot like how you portray a place.
For me, it wasn't like really more subjects, but maybe I would have loved to see more elders. I know it can be difficult with travel and everything, but I think that would have been nice to hear more about their perspective also.
Great point. Bronson, I think you had a point when we talked the other day.
When it comes to things that I want to see, there was one thing, just we had a quick chat about like maybe having like a description in the title, like because there were so many interesting panels that I wanted to attend, but getting the title of what it was, sometimes you go there and the conversation would steer in a completely different direction, which it was always a good conversation, but when you try to cater your schedule around certain topics, it might be interesting to just have a little blurb underneath that's just like describe what it's going to be about. But like I said, everything was really interesting, so even if the topics went off a little bit, it was very good. Something that I might suggest for future summits, I'm not sure if I've missed it, if it was there or not, but is how to get artists up to speed on how to talk about their ideas and proposals and how to like apply for grants and stuff, because there's so many artists from back home that don't know how to communicate their ideas, and so they have all these really amazing ideas and no resources to make them a reality and materialize them. And when I was 18, I moved out of my hometown, and that's when I started to learn how to talk to people, like professionally. Before that, I had no way that I could barely talk at all. And so over the last 9 years, I've been slowly developing my ability to talk to people and explain my ideas. And it's not something that you have at the get-go when you're growing up back home. You're very modest about everything. You don't want to take up people's time by explaining what you want to do. And yeah, I feel like people don't understand that we don't have that base level of just being able to talk about things and just having something to be able to promote more ideas that people are having trouble expressing would be good.
Yeah, and that would be a great opportunity for when we were talking a little bit about the disconnect between like the political aspect of art and the artwork itself. That would be a great opportunity to link those two and have conversations with people who are involved on the more technical side of art, curating and creating, and have connections with the actual artists so that they're even more capable of presenting their work to the world. Did you have thoughts, Jonas?
What was the question again?
Oh, sorry. So for future summits, what topics would you like to see discussed, or changes to the format of the summit?
I'm sorry I missed the question.
No, it's okay.
I was nervous about going on stage, and when I get nervous, I drink a lot of water. So sorry about that. Well, as Napachi mentioned earlier, I'm a civil engineering student with a strong interest in architecture and want to further my education through architecture. So I would have liked to have seen at least some panels or presentations touching on architecture a little bit, because I personally, I think it might just because it's my interest, but I see architecture as a very underrated art because it's all around us. It's like, it's the biggest art that affects us every day. It affects how we live, it affects how we interact with people, it impacts whether you need to have a car or whether you can walk to the store. So yeah, so it's a very important art. So it would have been very cool to see some discussions around architecture and city planning.
Any more comments about?
I've got one. Is it okay?
Of course, we got lots of time. Yeah.
Super. No, I just realized, so I was moderating a panel on climate yesterday, with regard to, international collaboration and art and cultural leadership and youth involvement and all of that stuff. And I think those big themes could maybe also be, because they are so, we realized that yesterday, I think that it was, I had like 10 more questions to ask the participants of the panel. And I think that's also something that maybe could even be spread out more into the other panels as well, because it's something that definitely has an impact on art, it has an impact on I mean, living conditions, it has an impact on politics, and yeah, those perspectives could be just kind of, yeah, maybe even influence other panels and other programming, I guess. Yeah, just a quick thought that I thought about now.
Excellent. Does anybody else have any more comments sort of related to
Yeah, I mean, architecture is there's a lot of traditional knowledge also through the architecture, which would be cool to get an insight in different cultures, architectural art. That would be great too. And also I enjoy that the panel talks have had different formats. Like we have here the traditional talk show kind of setup, and out in the Lavu, it was more of a conversational setup, serving coffee, and it's really intimate. So it's a low. It's easy for the participants to actually participate in the conversation, and I really enjoy that we had the different formats there to discuss topics in different ways.
I have like a
Bronson, go on.
I have just a very quick comment about like infrastructure in the north. Jonas and I attended a talk prior to the summit, and it was talking about, you know, how in northern communities and stuff like that, the decisions on what the houses are like and who gets the houses are made by people who are nowhere near it, and the decisions around housing and how the housing is made and distributed needs to be made in a more local sense. Because sometimes when someone from away hears about Indigenous architecture and how they want to have their homes built, I think you want to have like wooden igloos like in the community, and it's like, no, we don't want dome-shaped houses just because we had igloos when we were like traveling around, where we now don't live that way, and we're in these communities and we don't move around as much, but there are so many things that is overlooked by people who are nowhere in the area. So getting more decision on your infrastructure from the people who actually live there would be, yeah, very important.
Great point. So that's the end of my questions, but we do have time, and we can open up the discussion if you had other thoughts about any content that I didn't bring up in my questions, or if anyone has any further comments to make.
Yeah, well, I was going to say something to you just before you took off, but but you said something about coming here with the different clothing and stuff, and something that I felt was that because, yeah, obviously I also thought, okay, I had to bring my most beautiful clothing, which I like to present myself in. But coming here and seeing everyone just being totally themselves, it seems like. And yeah, your suit is beautiful too. So, I mean, we're all just coming here as we are, and it's room for that. It hasn't been there's no pressure that I've felt, at least, when I've really appreciated that, the vibe that we have meeting each other, and yeah, people being curious about each other without being intimidating in any way. So I really enjoyed that part of just being here.
Yeah, and I think that ties really well into something that we discussed as a group, the Inuit Futures group recently, was about how people often look at Indigenous people. I mean, we were talking specifically about Inuit, but seeing us as people stuck in the past, a static culture, and so that people talk about if you're Inuk and you wear traditional clothes, you can't also, wear Converse shoes, or you can't be a modern Inuk and a traditional Inuk. But I think that point is great because, you're wearing beautiful Sami clothing and you're wearing a modern, very sharp suit, but you're both Indigenous. It doesn't change the fact that you are both Indigenous, and that we're all modern people, and we also follow certain traditions of our cultures. So I think that's great, and it was a really, I don't know, it just felt good to have that conversation with other people and not internalize it.
Yeah, I can't remember who said it, but they said Indigenous people have always been contemporary and they always wanted to innovate and modernize, and just because there's new things that come along, it doesn't mean we have to keep using the same things. Like I know some friends who are in art school and they'll be asked by like professors and stuff, how come you didn't do this in your traditional methods? Like how come you didn't like make, what would it be, like a stone cut print and stuff? But like we have new tools and we're able to use them. Like we're always wanting to innovate. We're not just using things because it's historical, and like of course we respect tradition and everything like that, but we shouldn't be expected to just be static, like you said.
Yeah, and the same goes for like the content of our art. It doesn't have to be, I don't have to draw traditional women's comb. I can draw my friend drinking a coffee if I want to. He can be a white guy too. We're trying to take back our own sort of, I can't think of the word right now, but be able to produce whatever content we want, and it's still Inuit art, even if it doesn't have a polar bear in it, So that's all my questions. Did anybody else want to have any comments before I make my closing remarks?
I was very inspired, and thank you.
Yeah, very happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. It's revitalized my interest in the arts, and I'm so excited to go home and make things. I haven't made anything for myself in about 2 years, and so I'm going to go back and have all this inspiration and ideas for making art, and things like this are very important for growing and keeping the arts alive. So thank you for having me.
Of course, I also want to thank for being here, and next time I hope to get more of the program and stay here for much longer than I do now.
Thank you from me as well. I told some people that I really haven't been a part of the Arctic community at all before. So this has been very eye-opening for me in many, many ways. So thank you to all of you.
I guess as everybody else said, thank you so much. It was an honor to be here. And I felt very privileged to get to meet so many different people from different regions with different perspectives and life experiences. It was very, very enlightening. So thank you.
Yeah, and to continue the wave of thank yous, I just want to say a few more. To thank all of the organizers for this huge undertaking. Both the big organizations that were part of it, but also all of the support staff who worked really, really hard to get everyone, all the delegates organized and getting us together and booking our hotels, and the hotel staff for putting up with being completely fully booked to have all of these people come to the beautiful city of Whitehorse. And I'd also really like to thank just all of the delegates who have come and taken time, and many of you have traveled for 30 hours from different parts of the world to be here. It's been such a wonderful experience, and it's so eye-opening to be able to spend time with people from all over the world who have all these connections that we don't necessarily know about. We're ending a little bit early, but you can have that time. And you're welcome.
You guys can breathe now. You're done. Takes a lot of courage to come up and speak in front of so many people. So you guys did amazing. It was very nice to hear from all of you. And I do believe that one of the panelists is going to be doing a performance at the Taga show, the Riverside stage, which is, if you go outside and go to your right, there's a big, huge white tent that one of our panelists right here is going to be performing at 3:05.
He's really good. I heard him last night.
I hope to see you there.
Awesome. So you guys are done. You can relax. And right before we start our conclusions, I wanted to kind of talk up a little bit about the festival, which started today. So as I mentioned before, at 3:05, there's some performances starting, and we're finished at 3:05. So all of you guys should be heading over there. If you haven't told the coordinators yet, make sure to email the AAS 2022 email if you are leaving tomorrow morning on an early flight. Send them your flight info and the hotel that you're staying at so that you can get to the airport on time. Also, at 3:30, there is the Sami rap music and juggling performance at the Taga show stage, which is right behind us. And then there's also traditional hand games. It's kind of like, if you haven't seen hand games before, it's kind of like gambling. And it's really, really popular in the Yukon and NWT. Have any of you guys ever stick gambled before? No? And sometimes you get, like I used to work in schools and you weren't allowed to call it stick gambling because you're not allowed to gamble at school. So it might be known as hand games. You guys have you heard of hand games? Hand games, stick gambling, hand games. In Southern Shoshone, the name is Deshana Ye Kashka. And I just called it that and then I could get away with having it at school. Anyway, I'm gonna let these Shana exit the stage. So we'll give them some time to, another round of applause. Great job. And if you guys have noticed, there's some pamphlets that are being placed around that talks about what's happening tonight here. Things will start at 7, so there's performances starting right after this, and then we're getting started at 7. So we're not quite complete yet. I would like to now introduce Yukon Government Minister Ranj Pillai to the front for some closing remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know we're just let people transition. I think there's probably coffee, washroom, checking in, handing off business cards, addresses, those types of things. In closing, I just want to, a couple of comments. First of all, look, over the last 2 days, we've had the opportunity again to speak to so many people that have assembled here. My role was as Minister of Tourism and Culture, and it has been an absolute honor to be able to experience this event. Again, I think it's important to thank Kwanlin Dun First Nation for having the opportunity to spend time in this beautiful facility, and again to Tonquetchin Council for us being on their traditional territory. Again, it's bittersweet. This has been absolutely incredible. I think for the folks that have attended the conference and the summit from across the world, you knew what you were coming back to. And what I will tell you from Yukoners that are here, they've been overwhelmed by what this conference is and just how significant it is and how amazing it is. So this is certainly, again, a moment for us for celebration and to reflect again on the knowledge gained and the partnerships formed. And what an absolutely incredible 3 days. Again, having connected with so many and experienced so much this week, the insights gained, again, are going to take us all a while to process. We set out with this summit to host artists, cultural leaders, policymakers, other representatives from across the Indigenous Nations and Arctic countries of the Circumpolar region in order to advance the knowledge, stories, and cultures of the North and to stimulate collaboration. The last 3 days have surpassed, again, my already high expectations in every possible way. Again, I'm grateful to have been able to take in so many captivating performances, powerful artwork, and absolutely fascinating discussions. On a personal note, I would just say the two things that really were incredible are, one, I know for many, you might find it, the policy conversations, this just brought together colleagues that I haven't met before. And so, of course, having all of the ambassadors here and having a chance for us to get together and talk about where we can build relationship was incredible. The same with the ministers who came from a number of different Nordic countries, and we already are planning meetings and MOUs and work together and how we're going to essentially build stronger ties. I mean, my last discussion was what can we get done right away, and how do we visit each other again? And that's because of this conference. And listening today from conversations at a national, global level in Spain, where Minister Jolie was speaking, and I was thinking, what you're talking about on building relationships was happening in action right here in Whitehorse for the last number of days. So I thank you. The other thing I will mention is, and I know I saw Maria, and I wanted to I did not get a chance to meet her, but what I wanted to say is that my experience, and I'm probably the experience of many artists in this room, is that when you have big ideas and you have a vision to see something, sometimes it's difficult to get everybody on board and to bring people together to support your idea or concept. But it's, number one, so important to believe in yourself to do that and to continue to bring others together. And so it must be, I was just sitting, I know he's probably talking to some of the panelists from earlier, but I think about, it must be surreal to be sitting here and having that idea and making sure that you brought everybody together, and then it takes a life of its own. And this incredible, beautiful conference comes together. And so I want to just thank her and her colleagues. Please tell her I said thank you for having that belief and that vision. And a hand to her and to those involved, please. And I know there's others in the room, and I know there's folks that came together and supported. And I can feel the story. I didn't have it passed on in detail, but I would say that I've seen that movie with different actors, but I know it was an incredible tale. Again, on behalf of the government of Yukon, our sincere gratitude to everyone who played a part in bringing this to life and this monumental event together. Each and every artist, presenter, organizer, you have made this event what it is, and we are endlessly grateful for your contributions and for taking this journey with us. And to our presenting partners, the Yukon Arts Centre, the Yukon First Nations Culture and Tourism Association, and to our numerous community partners, thank you for opening your venues and offering your skills and expertise to ensure this event was a success. And special thanks goes to Gunta Business, consulting again around the clock. Blair, Jesse, thank you. Amazing Indigenous-owned business, phenomenal entrepreneurs that pulled this all together and shared it with everybody. Thank you. You quite literally, we could not have, again, done this without you. And finally, to our co-host, the Canada Council of the Arts. Again, it's about people. Simon, Jesse, your team, these are good people. Good people. And as I said this morning, for Canadians that are here, we're in good hands with these folks. And I think, Jesse, you said it as well. The other amazing moment was, and I'm going to add to what you said, because I have to give kudos to Minister McLean, who believed in this with our tourism and culture staff. What we had happen at our opening was also we had an amazing Indigenous minister who led in this country on the murder and missing women's file, as well as many other things, who believed that we should stick to this and bring this conference here. And then, of course, had the Governor General come on stage as our first Indigenous Governor General, and then have you quoted 3 times from your book as the first chair. So I don't think that was all planned, but certainly was pretty symbolic of what, we were trying to educate folks on and to pass on. Again, to everyone, thank you. Kak, Kitos, merci, Gunishchish, Masicho, Shoni Thun, Nakumik. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Minister. Thank you to the government of Yukon. Thank you to the Kwanlindun Nation and the Ta'ankwa Cha'an Council to have welcomed us on your land. I have a few thank yous to say, and then I want to touch points about, what do we do next. So first, I want to thank one of my closest colleagues for a long time, who has been leading this project on behalf of the Canada Council, Michel Chala. I would also like to thank the leadership committee of the summit for their respective teams, so Heather Iglio-Liot, Sophie Tremblay-Morissette, Alissa Procida, Sylvain Cornuau, and Stephen Love, and Sabra Ripley, Marion Vitrac, and Erit Corbett. Thank you for all the work you did. Thank you. I also obviously want to thank and congratulate Maria Utsi, our international consultant for this summit and the founder of the Arctic Arts Summit. So thank you, Maria. I would like to thank the fabulous curators, Renelta Arluk, Kathy Johnson, and Heather Igloriot for their incredible work, vision. I want to thank Charlene Alexander from Yukon First Nations Culture and Tourism, Cassie Prescott, and Mary Bradshaw from the Yukon Arts Center. I want to thank Gunta Business 2, Jesse, Stephen, and Stephanie Peniquet for all the logistic of this summit. It was very well done, very impressive, very smooth. Thank you to all of our partners who have given so much time and energy. You can see the full list of our partners on the back of the brochure. I want to also thank the many organizations in Canada and across the Circumpolar North who have contributed to this in-person gathering, and also the digital program leading up to it, and the digital program that will follow this summit. And obviously, thank all of you for, believe that it was important and for coming here. Thank you. Now, what do we do? So just want to say a few things, because since the day one, when the name of Canada was evoked at the last summit, and the Canada Council decided that, okay, we will play that role. We're not Canada, we're not the government of Canada, we are an arts council, but we had enough capacities to make it happen. And this is when we did ask proposals from the territories, because we definitely wanted to have it in the north for the first time. Because the other times it happened in the capital region, and we did not want a summit in Ottawa. We wanted it in the north, which was really the big call for action. And since day one, because it has been now 3 years in the making, our question is obviously with what, when, and who will take charge for the fourth summit, because we need a fourth arts cultural summit. I don't have the answer to that question yet, but I just want to say that during the summit, we had many conversations with our friends from Norway, because this is where the summit happened for the first time with Maria. And we made an agreement between the Canada Council and Norway, the Ministry of Culture, that we would create some kind of a structure together in order to make sure that there will be a fourth summit and that there will be real follow-ups to this meeting. So we will announce all the details of that, but we have strong commitment, both from Norway and from the Canada Council, to make it happen. So we obviously will work, because in terms of the content and in terms of the organizing of all that, there's still work to do, and we will work with partners, and we're open to business to work with everybody from the Circumpolar Circle. I just want to conclude by by explaining something I discovered. I think I knew it more or less, but I kind of discovered during this summit, is the fact that we absolutely need to reinvent cultural diplomacy. For a very good reason. Cultural diplomacy is a kind of a soft power that is really important, that has been developed and controlled by state nations. But the problem for a lot of our state nations, their problem or their opportunity, is that each of those state nations have many nations into the state nations. The case in Canada, it's a case in other countries. And we think that this push for kind of an intentional ignorance of the frontiers and the boundaries for the circumpolar circle means that we need to have a different kind of a cultural diplomacy directly from nations to nations. So not from state nations to state nations, but from nations to nations, and obviously with the indigenous nations. And I think a lot of that happened over the last few days. I think we need to continue that. And this is why, for us, it's so important to make sure that there will be a fourth summit, that we will also develop the necessary financial instruments to make sure that in this large circle, there are no barriers for nations to nations relationships, from communities to communities relationship. So I just want to end, because I will ask Jesse to talk, to say that nothing can happen if we don't find ways to work, not only at the level between institutions and nations, but also between individuals. And I think that the fact that it took kind of 3 years because of the pandemic to finally have this summit was a bad thing, but also a very good thing, because everybody who worked on this, everybody trying to organize the panels, all that, we had more time to discuss, debate, figure this out, knowing each other, building relationships that are now strong and that nobody will be able to break. So thank you.
Oh, I very much like it when the CEO talks about diplomacy between First Nations and the state. That is moving in the right direction, I have to say. So I want to express my gratitude and thanks and my humility at all of you for coming here, all of the organizers, the curators, the artists who've participated in this extraordinary event. I hope this is a real change-making moment where we can look at a new way to work in the future, a new way to support the artists here on their own terms. I wanted to also take this moment, Simon and I had talked about, you know, these closing remarks reflecting on some of the things we heard, and I did want to comment on something I heard in this very hall here yesterday when the state representatives were up here discussing, and the representative here for Canada pointed to me as my roles as both chair of the Canada Council and co-executive director of the Indigenous Screen Office as an example of the fine work being done here in Canada around Indigenous arts. And I didn't know quite what to think when that happened. And then I went outside and I met with my partner in crime, Carrie Swanson, who I don't know if she's in the room, and she said that it reminded her of something she often faces, which is people tend to believe that when it comes to the Indigenous Screen Office, that somehow I have done everything at the Indigenous Screen Office, which is just not true. The Indigenous Screen Office is where it is today because of Carrie Swanson, not because of Jesse Wente and all of the work that she does, but because occasionally I have the deeper voice, I'm taller, I take up more space in all the ways that could be decided, people assume that I have done it. But that is not true. I'm community-made, not self-made, and so is the Indigenous Screen Office. And so I guess I just wanted to also say that it's also true that just because a colonial government appoints very qualified Indigenous people to high-profile positions in 2020, that isn't necessarily the win that they think it is. I think that perhaps we should see it as a long time coming and very delayed rather than a celebration of necessarily something that's moving. And I want to make it clear that I, and Simone can attest to this, I certainly don't view my position in any of the roles that I play as there to absolve the government of anything. I think quite the opposite, in fact. And I also wanted to just say, because I know there was this incredible panel of young people up here before, and I don't know if any of them were in that room when the government was saying that, but I just want to say to you, don't let that discourage you from taking these leadership positions, because that was their thing. That is not our thing. What they believe is what they believe. When I left this hall, I'm surrounded by community who knows me very well and knows what I'm all about. So I don't want you ever to be discouraged just because they may want to put you outside, like the cigar store Indian, for look but no words. But you do not have to play that part ever. And you deserve everything you get. You work hard, you deserve to be in these leadership positions, and I will always be there to support you and make sure that you never have to pay attention to stuff like that. And you should know that when they said that, that's what I did. I don't need that validation, because the validation comes from my community outside. And so in the spirit of that and Simone's words, some of the things I would love to think about is, I heard fascinating questions to that very panel that they didn't answer about the connection between culture and climate change. We need answers to this, about what this looks like. About a fascinating question about why Sami language content is geo-blocked in colonial borders. Why is that? That doesn't make any sense. And that's something easy to solve. Why we must make sure that our funding accommodates travel in the north, which can be quite expensive, and is not the fault at all of the people that live here or the nations that have existed here forever. Travel was cheap before colonialism up here. You just had to prepare for it a little much, and no one lost their luggage. So I'd encourage all my colleagues at the arts funding bodies, the government officials that were here, all of the ones at the arts institutions, to take the message that it is time that we change the nature of our work to better serve the communities we are meant to be serving. And that means all communities that we are meant to be serving, not the ones that look like us or stare back at us from the mirror, but especially the ones when you fly over this country that you miss when they're down there. And that's, I hope, the message. This has been an event of great hope for me. So I don't want any nonsense that occurs on this stage to dampen the remarkable work that was put into this conference and what will come out of this, because it will be transformational when we come out of this. And to all my First Nations, Métis and Inuit cousins, my Sami cousins, it's all going to come back. We'll all have it all back. Just be patient. Know that those countries that don't talk about decolonization today, they'll talk about it tomorrow. And they'll do that because we will force them to. Remember that a lot of the things that have come about, these good changes that have existed, are because of our work to make them happen. Rarely do the governments just give so kindly to us. We work hard to make these changes happen. We work hard to make sure we are represented in these institutions, and it is our right to run these institutions and to have control over culture in this country. The past is over. It's lost with the luggage. We're not going to get it back. So it's time that we create a new bag that we carry forward with us, a new pack, a new blanket that we put on our shoulders and carry forward that isn't the one of the past. So I hope that's what this conference can spark. I want everyone to know how much I am very proud of all of you, and I have my spirit and my heart is full. I will leave some tobacco behind as thanks. So I hope you have a great rest of the conference. Enjoy the art crawl, all the food, all the incredible programming, and miigwech, 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 chi miigwech for coming. Thank you.
I would like to now invite Kwanlundana Show and Smith to the front for our closing prayer.
When I was asked to first come here on Monday, and I did a prayer at the beginning with my elder from Taan Quechan, and it felt really good because this is what we're trying to show you, what it's like to work together. For all of us to get something for this. The amount of work that for us to get to where we are today, it was a lot. And I still have to be very thankful for the elders from the past. They were the ones that did it for us. And they led us into today. And also they will lead us into the future. That's kind of work that was done in the past. And that's how we were able to do it. I just wanted to say thank you for visiting our homeland. And I will do a prayer to close the meeting and also to send you in a good way. Kunchish. I pray to the Great Spirit, grandfather, grandmother. We ask you today to help us as we start to return home. We ask for your guidance. We ask for your protection. So all the people that has come here will be able to make it home in a good way. I pray, Creator, that in the future, that we will always work together to create this beautiful circle around our Mother Earth. So that we can talk to each other, to visit each other, to share our knowledge, to share our ways of helping each other, to share our ways of supporting each other. I pray for all the ones that are going through a hard time. Creator, grandfather, grandmother, I ask you to watch over them. I ask you to watch over our children. I pray, Great Spirit, that we will get all the help that we need around this world for the children. I pray, Creator, for this to happen, to help our future generations, the seven generations. That's our plan. That's one of the plans. I thank you, Great Spirit, for this beautiful land, for what you have given to us as a beautiful gift. I pray for our mountains, our beautiful water, the streams that come down the mountains, and the water that flows through our country. I pray, Great Spirit, that all these beautiful gifts will be here for future generations. I pray it will be here for 7 generations and the ones that are yet to come. I thank you, Creator, for all the hard work that our people did for this meeting. It's so much appreciated. I know that delegates really enjoyed themselves, and that was pretty awesome to see. I thank you, Creator, for this day. And I pray that we will have a safe evening and a good rest tonight. Until next time, we see each other again. Kunishji's Great Spirit, Kunishji's grandfathers, Kunishji's grandmothers. Thank you.
Shonithan Ashoan Smith for a closing prayer. Just a couple things before we end. The shuttle is officially full, so if you're leaving tomorrow and you weren't booked on the shuttle for tomorrow morning, you need to phone a cab, and I would phone it very early because you have to be at the airport very early. And also, when we're done, go check out the stage after. I hope you enjoy the festival that's happening right after this. The gallery is now open. Shanke Lukambalu Yeche, and I've been so grateful to be here with you guys. I see more faces that have been coming as the night has, or the day has been ending. Enjoy your time in the Yukon. Enjoy the beautiful weather. I hope you made awesome connections. That's it.